see pictures of those ancient temples with massive stone towers reaching way up into the sky and just wonder, how did they do that? Well, what if I told you they weren't just amazing feats of engineering? What if they were actually giant vertical storybooks filled with myths, history, and a whole lot of drama? Okay, let's get into it.
So what you're looking at here are the temple towers, or gopurams, from the Nayak kings in southern India. And the key thing to get is that these aren't just buildings. Every single inch was designed to be a narrative canvas, telling incredible stories to anyone who walked by.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll get to know the Nayak kings themselves. Then we're going to dissect one of their signature towers, kind of like architectural detectives. After that, we'll take a tour of 3 incredible temples to decode the myths carved right into their walls. And finally, we'll wrap it all up by looking at the amazing artistic legacy they left behind.
Right, so who were these master builders? Let's dive into the Nayak dynasty and see the unique mark they left on history.
The Nayaks came to power in Tamil Nadu back in the 16th century. This was a time of huge change and incredible art happening all over the world. They started their rule in a few different places over just a few years, and they'd stay in power all the way up to 1736, really shaping the culture for centuries.
That's 210 years. I mean, think about that. Over 2 centuries of building and creating art that completely changed the face of southern India.
And what's really fascinating about their whole philosophy is that they weren't always starting from scratch. A huge part of their mission was to find older, existing temples, restore them, and then just make them bigger, grander, and more magnificent than anyone had ever seen before. So what is it that makes a Nayak tower so special? Well, try to think of it less like a building and more like a vertical graphic novel, where every single level tells another part of the story. Let's break down how they're put together. Okay, so just imagine you're walking up to one of these temples. The first thing you see is this massive entrance, a gateway so big it's often split into 2 lanes, one to go in, one to go out. The door itself is this huge, heavy piece of solid stone or wood. It just feels ancient. Then, to get inside, you have to step over a single raised stone threshold like you're crossing into another world. Now, you look up. The tower just soars above you. The upper parts are actually built from lighter stuff like brick and lime mortar, which is how they could build them so incredibly high. And then you see them. All around you, on the inner walls, are these vibrant paintings. These are the pages of our stone storybook. All right, now that we know the basic anatomy, let's see these incredible storybooks in action. We're going on a quick tour of 3 of the most important Nayak temples to see their art for ourselves. Our first stop is a place that's just, honestly, it's mind-blowing. The Madurai Meenakshi Amman Temple. This isn't just one building, it's like a whole city dedicated to faith. A true masterpiece of Nayak art, and a living library of stories. The moment you step inside, the stone walls just come alive. You can find an entire epic saga told in 64 different scenes, the Tiruvilayado, which are the sacred games of the god Shiva. But it's not just about gods. If you look closely, you'll see real history painted right next to the mythology. There are these vivid paintings from the time of a powerful queen, Rani Mangamal, including one that actually shows her own coronation ceremony. And at the very heart of it all is the main event, the spectacular wedding of the temple's deities, Meenakshi and Sundareswarar. Okay, so from the massive complex of Madurai, our next stop is the Aligarh Temple. And this place, well, it takes the whole idea of telling a story in a series to a completely new level. Get this, the artists here painted the entire story of the Ramayana, one scene after another. You can literally walk through the temple and watch the whole epic unfold. The birth of the hero Rama and his brothers, scenes of them in school, even the really emotional moment when their father, King Dashratha, dies. And here's the brilliant part. To make sure everyone could understand it, they wrote little descriptions under each painting in the common, everyday language people actually spoke. It was storytelling for absolutely everyone. For our final stop on this tour, we're heading to the Chidambaram Sivakami Amman Temple. And here, the stories on the walls get really, really dramatic. So if you look at the paintings on the front porch canopies, they tell this incredibly complex story about divine power. You see the god Shiva, but he's in disguise as this really charming character named Pachinadin, who's winning over the wives of the local sages. Then, the next scene shows the sages, totally humbled by Shiva's power, walking away defeated behind another god, Tiramal, who's taken the form of this enchanting woman named Mohini. It's a full-on mythological drama, captured in paint for all time.
Okay, so after seeing all that, what are the big ideas? What were they trying to say with all this art? Let's boil it down to three key cultural symbols you see again and again in Nayak art.
First, you've got the Epic of Ramayana. Just like we saw at Aligarh Temple, this wasn't just a fun adventure story. It was a foundational text teaching everyone about heroism, duty, and fate. It was a cultural touchstone painted for all to see.
Second, the divine acts of Shiva. From his playful games in Madurai to his really dramatic actions in Chidambaram, these stories were visual lessons. They showed the power and personality of a major god, illustrating the core beliefs of their faith. And third, royal patronage. This is so clever. By painting actual historical rulers like Queen Rani Magamal right into the sacred space of the temple, the Nayaks basically merged their own legacy with the divine. It was a brilliant move to cement their power, their faith, and their place in history. So let's bring this all home. What is the lasting impact? What is the timeless legacy that the Nayaks left for us? There's this one quote that just perfectly sums it all up. These paintings are meant to illustrate religious and social events. It wasn't just one or the other. It was always both. And that's really the main takeaway here. The Nayaks weren't just incredible builders. They were storytellers. They were cultural librarians. They turned these temples into massive, permanent public libraries, carving and painting their most important stories into stone for everyone to see, for all generations. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? These massive temples were built to be living stories in stone, meant to last forever. In our world today, our digital age where information is so fast and often so temporary, what can we learn from this kind of permanent, powerful public art?